night my daughter asked me for my mama's biscuit recipe. I thought it was just about flour and butter. I didn't know it was about names nobody said out loud anymore. We were standing in my kitchen, same little square room I've cooked in for 30 years, the one that smells like coffee in the morning and onions in a skillet most evenings. The overhead light hummed. The ceiling fan clicked in that way it's been doing for 4 summers now, and my oldest girl, Denise, leaned against the counter with her phone in her hand and that look on her face. If you've got grown kids, you know the look I mean. The one that's half I need your help and half I'm afraid you're gonna make this bigger than it needs to be. Mama, she said, do you still have Grandma's biscuit recipe? The real one? I raised an eyebrow at her. As opposed to the fake one I've been feeding you your whole life, I asked. She huffed a little laugh. You know what I mean, she said. The one in her handwriting. The one Daddy used to say tastes like Sunday morning and payday. I want to make it for Mia's birthday brunch. Thought it'd be, I don't know, nice. Her voice softened on that last word. My granddaughter was turning 10, double digits. The age where little girls start having opinions about the kind of women they think they might become. Biscuit heritage suddenly felt important. I got it somewhere, I said, whipping my hands on a dish towel. Lord knows I haven't forgotten how to make 'em. But if you want the relic, we can go on an archaeological dig. She smiled. I do, she said. I want the relic. That's what we call Mama's recipe box in this house. The reliquary. The ark. The thing you don't mess with unless you're willing to uncover a little history along with your dinner. It lives on the top shelf of my pantry, tucked behind the cereal boxes, in a dented green tin that used to hold fancy cookies before it got promoted to something sacred. I dragged over a chair, climbed up carefully, my knees complained, as usual, and reached into the shadows. The tin was cool under my fingers, a little sticky from years of kitchen air. I pulled it down like I was talking down the family Bible. Dust puffed up as I set it on the table. Denise watched, suddenly more serious than she'd been. You sure you want to go marble digging in here? I asked, half joking. Once we open it, we might end up talking about more than butter ratios. She shrugged, but I saw her throat move as she swallowed. It's just biscuits, Mama, she said. How dangerous could it be? I could have told her. Family recipes are never just about the food. They're about who stood at the stove, who was invited to the table, who got the first piece, and who had to wash the dishes. But some lessons you don't teach with talk. You teach with what spills out when you open old tins. I popped the lid. Inside was chaos. Not the messy kind, exactly. My mama was too organized to let anything go completely wild, but the layered kind. Index cards thick with thumbprints. Yellowed newspaper clippings, folded 3 different times. Little envelopes with Christmas fudge 1984, do not lose, scrawled on the front. A couple of recipe cards clearly written by cousins who thought cursive was optional. The smell hit me first. Vanilla and old paper. Cinnamon and thyme. I felt my eyes sting for a second. You okay? Denise asked. Just got some paprika in my feelings, I said. Help me sort. Biscuits should be near the top. Mama didn't believe in burying essentials. We sat side by side at the table, cards spread out like tarot. Fried chicken, pear salad, coconut cake, the cornbread dressing that had single-handedly kept peace at Thanksgiving for decades. I could feel Denise watching my hands as I flipped through. My fingers knew the weight of certain cards without reading them. The banana pudding card, warped from splashes of milk. The chocolate pie card, edges curled from the number of times we'd pulled it out and put it back. What's this one? She asked, picking up a card with syrup cake written across the top in my grandmother's tidy, old-fashioned script. That, I said, is the cake that kept your granddaddy married to my mama through at least 3 bad years. She used it as apology, bribe, and celebration. Multi-purpose cake. Good to know, she said, studying the ingredients like maybe syrup. Cake might save something in her own life one day. I kept digging, and then I saw it. Here we go, I said, pulling out a faded card with Mama's biscuits, written in my mother's heavier, loopy hand. Denise leaned in. That's it, she breathed. That's it, I said, then squinted. Only she's being stingy. Half this recipe S in her head, not on this card. That was Mama all over. She'd write, add enough milk, like that was a measurable unit. I laid the card on the table between us. Then something else caught my eye. Beneath the biscuit card was another, tucked slightly underneath, like they were stuck together by time. This one was written in a different hand. Smaller, straighter, not quite as smooth. Blue ink instead of black. On the top it said, Mama June's biscuits with notes. But here's the thing, I hadn't written that. Not in that handwriting. Not with that neatness. I slid the top card aside and pulled up the one beneath. Denise frowned. What's that? She asked. That, I said slowly, is a question I didn't know I had. The card was dated in the corner, 1994. I tried to remember where I was in 94. Raisin babies, working the register at Prute's Pharmacy, trying to keep my marriage from fraying like an old dish towel. I remembered lots of things from that year. I did not remember sitting down and written out my biscuit recipe for anyone in blue ink. I scanned the lines. It was my recipe, more or less. Flour, salt, baking powder, butter, buttermilk. Only on the side, in parentheses, were little notes. She always pats the dough 3 times. No more, no less. She keeps her hands cold and her heart soft. She pretends she doesn't measure, but she does. She just uses her eyes. I felt something twist in my chest. Whoever wrote this hadn't just watched me cook. They'd watched me in a way that made seeing feel like loving. There was a little heart drawn next to the word Mama. Maybe it was me, Denise said, reading upside down. Back when I was in high school, I used to copy your recipes into my notebook. I shook my head. This ain't your chicken scratch, I said. You write like your daddy, all angles and impatience. This is tidy, careful, like somebody took their time. Maybe Aunt Leela, she suggested. Leela doesn't use hearts unless she's 17 and in trouble, I said. And she calls me sis, not Mama June. We looked at each other. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly. Too quiet. Flip it over, Denise said. I did. On the back, in that same small print, was a single line. For the day I meet you. H. I stared at it so long the letters blurred. For the day I meet you, I repeated. Denise frowned. What does that mean? She asked. I don't know, I said. But I got a feeling I'm about to find out whether I want to or not. You need to understand something about my family tree. It isn't neat. Some folks have those nice charts. Branches all lined up, names in boxes, everything symmetrical. Mine looks more like a wisteria vine, twisted, beautiful in places, capable of strangling a porch rail if you let it. My mama had me when she was 21. Married to my daddy, sleeves rolled up, life planned like a Sunday school lesson. They had a house, a car, a church pew with their name worn into the end from all the sittin'. Far as I knew growing up, ours was a simple story. It wasn't until I turned 18 and found a shoebox in Mama's closet full of letters addressed to Miss June Carter at a different address than the one we lived in that I realized there had been a before. Back before my daddy. Back before my birth certificate said what it said. A time when my mama was just June. Not Mama, not Mrs., just a scared girl with a secret she'd never fully told. We had our big blow up about that years ago. Too many tears. Too many, why didn't you tell me? And I was trying to protect you. It took us a long time to find our way back to sittin' at the same table without that shoebox between us like a ghost. She told me the basics when I was finally calm enough to hear. She had a baby before me at 17 with a boy whose name she never would say out loud. If that baby up through one of those church homes for girls where they take your belly, your baby, and your name and send you home with a Bible and a story about sin and forgiveness. He never even saw her, she'd said about my daddy. By the time I met him, she was already somewhere else, with someone else. They told us it was better that way, clean, new start. I hadn't thought about that conversation in years. I tucked it into my own shoebox in the back of my heart. It was too big, too sad, full of questions I couldn't answer. Now I stared at a recipe card that felt like an echo. For the day I meet you. Denise cleared her throat. Mama, she said, voice gentle. You look like you're about to faint or fight somebody, or both. I blinked, came back to the room. Sorry, I said, just doing some math. She sat back in her chair. You think this is about that baby? She asked carefully. I pressed my palm flat on the table, felt the old wood under my skin. I don't know, I said. That scares me. She bit her lip. You want to let it go? She asked. We can. We can just make biscuits and pretend we never saw that card. The fact that she offered that was so kind made my chest hurt. Part of me wanted to take her up on it, to shove that card back in the tin, put the lid on, and go back to the version of my life where the past stayed in sepia and didn't walk into my kitchen. But I'm too old now to believe pretendin' makes things disappear. Just makes them heavier. I picked up the card again. For the day I meet you, I murmured. You know what that sounds like to me? What? Denise asked, almost whispering. It sounds like somebody out there wrote down my biscuit recipe like a promise, I said. Like they were saying, one day I'm gonna stand in her kitchen and we're gonna make these together. The idea slid into the room like a new smell. Denise exhaled slowly. You think, Mama, she said, do you think that H could be her? I looked at my daughter. She was 37. Same age I'd been when my mama finally told me her secret. The ache in her eyes looked familiar. I don't know, I repeated. But if it is, that means somebody has been closer than we thought. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed listening to the ceiling fan click, feeling the weight of that little card on my nightstand like it was a brick. My mind ran loops. HH for what? Hannah, Holly, Hope, Hell. I got up twice to make tea. I walked through the dark house, past the photos on my walls, my girls in their prom dresses, my grandbabies as sticky toddlers, Mama on her 80th birthday holding a slice of syrup cake like a trophy. Her eyes in that picture looked older, softer, tired. What else had she kept in that tin? In the kitchen, I opened the green box again. It felt like opening a door I'd already gone through once and promised myself I wouldn't walk back through without reason. Well, I had reason now. I flipped through the cards more carefully this time, looking not for ingredients, but for clues. There were a few more in that same neat blue handwriting. One for blackberry jam, the way she really does it. One for chicken and dumplings Mama June style. One for sweet tea exact ratios. Each had little side comments. She hums when she stirs this. She lets the dumplings sit a minute because she says good things need rest. She pretends this is too sweet and then drinks 2 glasses. Whoever H was, she'd been in my kitchen enough to pick up my tells, but I couldn't place her. Our house had always had kids running in and out. My girls' friends, cousins, neighbor kids, church youth. Faces floated through my memory. Ponytails, braces, awkward teenagers leaning against my fridge, eating my leftovers. Had one of them been talking notes in more ways than one? I turned one of the cards over, half expecting another message. This one was blank. Just the biscuit card had the line. For the day I meet you. It felt deliberate. I put everything back in the tin, set it on the counter, and stared out the dark window. My reflection looked back at me, older than I felt inside sometimes, wiser than I give myself credit for other times. "You already met me," I whispered. "You were in my kitchen. You saw me cook." "What do you mean? For the day I meet you?" The house didn't answer. I went back to bed and dreamed of sittin' at a table that kept addin' places, chairs stretchin', all the way out the door, hands reachin' for biscuits I couldn't get baked fast enough. The next mornin', I did what I always do when my heart's too full of questions. I called my sister. Leela answered on the third ring, her voice bright and suspicious. "What's wrong?" she said. "You never call this early unless somebody died or you saw a weird bird." "Good mornin' to you, too," I said. "And for your information, the weird bird was newsworthy." She sighed. "What happened?" she asked, tone softening. "You okay?" "Define okay," I said. "You got a minute?" "For my big sister, I got 10, she said. After that, I got to pretend to work. I told her about the biscuit card, about the handwriting, about the H, about the line on the back. Silence crackled through the line when I finished. "Leela," I said, heart knockin', "did Mama ever mention anyone? A girl? A letter? Anything about her first baby after she told us about her?" Leela exhaled long. "You really want to go down that road?" she asked. "We're already on it," I said. "Might as well look out the window." She was quiet a moment. "You remember that summer after Mama's stroke," she said finally, "when we cleaned out her house?" "Lord, do I said. "I still have nightmares about that closet full of church bulletins." "You and me both," she said. "Well, there was something I didn't tell you about then, because you were already raw, and I didn't want to pile on." I sat up straighter in my chair. "What?" I asked. "In her bedroom," she said slowly, bottom drawer of her nightstand. There was a letter, old, envelope brittle, addressed to June Carter at our childhood address. Return address from Atlanta. No name, just an initial. "H," I said. "Yes," she admitted. "H," my skin prickled. "You read it?" I asked. "Of course I read it," she said. "I'm nosy, not dead." It was short. Just a few lines. Something like, "I think I found you. I think I'm yours. I don't want to cause trouble, but I want to know where my eyes came from. If this is the wrong person, I'm sorry. If it's not, please send me nothing or everything. I'll take either over this not knowing." Then an address. And the name. My roof felt like it tilted. "What name?" I asked, breath held. "Harper," she said. "First name Harper. Last name different from ours, of course. But that was the signature. Love, or maybe just hello, Harper." Tears sprang to my eyes before my brain caught up. "H," I whispered. "Harper." Leela kept talking. "There were grease spots on it," she said, "and flour. Like Mama read it in the kitchen and then stuck it in her apron and kept stirring." I pictured that so clearly it hurt. My Mama standing at the stove, letter in one hand, spoon in the other, heart in her throat. "What did she do with it?" I whispered. "She stuck it back in the envelope and put it in that drawer," Leela said. "That was 1994, far as I could tell from the postmark. She never mentioned it. Not once. Not to me, not to you, not that I know of." My eyes flicked to the date on the recipe card. 1994. Same year. "I put the letter back," Leela continued. "Figured it was her story to tell, not mine. Then she had the stroke, and after that, never seemed to be a good time to say, 'Hey, by the way, your ghost baby wrote you.'" A shaky laugh slipped out of me. "Ghost baby," I repeated. "You are so delicate." "You know what I mean," she said. "Anyway, when we were cleaning out the house after she passed, I went looking for it." "And?" I asked. "It wasn't there," she said. My heart skipped. "Gone?" I asked. "Gone," she said. Drawer was empty except for her night cream and a rosary. I figured maybe she'd thrown it away in a moment of something. Or maybe one of the grandkids found it and thought it was junk. I don't know. I looked at the recipe card on my table. "She didn't throw it away," I said slowly. "She moved it, and she wrote my biscuit recipe on a card the same year, in somebody else's handwriting. Leela was quiet. You think she met her? She asked. You think she met Harper? I closed my eyes. If she did, she never told us, I said. If she didn't, she thought enough about it to write down a recipe for the day I meet you. We sat there in 2 different houses, 2 different kitchens, connected by 1 phone line and a whole lot of maybes. Why didn't she tell us about the letter? I finally asked. You really need me to answer that, Leela said gently. Guilt, shame, fear, habit, pick one, pick all. She'd spent her whole life vain, told that the kind thing to do was pretend it never happened. You can't unlearn that at 72 just because the mailman brings you an envelope. I rubbed my forehead. You still have her papers? I asked. The boxes from her lawyer, the church stuff, the shoe boxes. In my garage, she said. Under 3 Christmas wreaths and your ex-husband's bowling trophies you stuck me with. That's what sisters are for, I said. You think you could dig out anything with an Atlanta address on it? Maybe a reply. You think Mama wrote back? Leela asked, incredulous. I thought of the flower on that letter, the biscuit card. Way Mama had looked at my girls sometimes like she was counting. Something out loud in her head. I don't know, I said, but I think it's time we stop letting not knowing be our default. She sighed. I'll look, she said. No promises, but I'll look. You okay? No, I said honestly. But I'm upright. That's enough for today. Love you, ghost niece or not, she said. Love you, nosy gremlin, I replied. When I hung up, the house felt different again. Smaller, bigger, both. There was somebody out there, maybe, who had written down my biscuit recipe in 1994, signed an initial on the back of a card, and walked around with a question mark in their chest. And if there's one thing I can't stomach, it's someone going to bed hungry when there's food in my kitchen. Especially if that hunger is for their own story. 2 days later, Leela showed up at my door with a cardboard box and a face that looked like she'd seen a ghost and argued with it. Make coffee, she said, walking right past me into the kitchen. We got mail. The box clinked with old paper. She set it on the table with a thud. I put on the kettle, hands shaking, just enough to annoy me. What'd you find? I asked. She opened the box and rifled through, paper rustling. Church directories mostly, she said. Brochures from that bus trip she took to Dollywood. A stack of recipes she meant to ask you about and never did. And this. She pulled out a thin file folder and a small, worn envelope. The envelope made my heart stop. It was the same as she'd described. Yellowed, creased. My mama's maiden name and married name both scribbled on the front where she'd tried to change the address and got it wrong. There was no letter inside, just the envelope. I picked it up, hell in my throat. Maybe she kept the envelope as a reminder, Leela shrugged. Or maybe she moved the letter somewhere else and I didn't find it. What's the address? Asked, flipping it over. A street in Atlanta. Apartment 3B, no last name beyond Harper. I felt a mix of frustration and tenderness. The last time I'd tried to drive in downtown Atlanta, I'd ended up circling the same block 4 times and crying in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. This was before GPS. Now I had no excuse. You think she still lives there? Leela asked. It's been 30 years, I said. She could be anywhere. That building could be a yoga studio or a parking lot now. But it's a place to start. Leela sighed. I also found this, she said, holding up the file folder. On the tab, in Mama's familiar script, were 2 words, Biscuit Trust. I couldn't help it. I laughed. You gotta be kidding me, I said. She made a folder. Apparently, Leela said. Open it. Inside were 3 things. A copy of Mama's handwritten biscuit recipe. A short note in her own words. If Harper finds me, and if I live long enough to look her in the eye, I want her to have this. I don't know what else to give a stranger who is not a stranger. Food is the only thing I know how to share without messing it up. And a smaller card in that neat blueprinting. My name is Harper, it read. I was born July 3, 1958, at the church home for unwed mothers in Macon, Georgia. I have my father's last name, but I don't know his face. I have your eyes, maybe. I would like to know if you bake like I do. A little smiley face was drawn next to the word bake. I swear to you, the kitchen swayed. 35 years old she'd have been in 1994. Not much younger than I was when my marriage fell apart, and I realized my life wasn't a straight line either. She wrote this, I asked, even though I knew the answer. Looks like it, Lila said. There's a postmark on the envelope. There's Mama's grocery list on the back of the note. That's her penmanship for sure. Grocery list, I thought. Biscuits and babies written on the same scrap. You okay? Lila asked. No, I said again. But I'm something. We sat there with the file between us. What do we do? She asked. It was a wild thing hearing my little sister ask me that. She'd always been the impulsive one. The do first, apologize later one. I'd been the one mop pin up. Now she was looking at me like I had answers. I don't know yet, I said. But I know what I can't do. What's that? She said. I can't put this back in the box and close the lid, I said. Mama did that for 30 years. I ain't gonna do it another 30. You gonna go to that address? She asked. I thought of driven to Atlanta. Of knocking on a door and asking for a woman I'd never met and might have imagined. Of the possibility that nobody by that name had lived there in decades. I might, I said. But first, I'm gonna ask someone who knows more about looking for people in this century than I do. Lila snorted. You mean Denise, she said. I mean Denise, I said. My daughter, for all her anxiety and big feelings, had a spine that was slowly hardening in the right direction. She was good at finding things, information, deals, lost socks, maybe lost people. You really want to drag her into this? Lila asked. I looked at the recipe card, the note, the envelope. She dragged herself into it when she asked for biscuits, I said. And besides, this isn't me dragging her. This is me pulling back a curtain so she can see the stage she's been standing on her whole life. You and your metaphors, Lila muttered, but there was affection in it. I stood and reached for another mug. If we're gonna open old wounds, I said, we're at least gonna do it with coffee and something sweet. When Denise came over that afternoon with Mia in tow, my granddaughter went straight to the TV, while Denise went straight to the table. She saw the envelope, the folder, the card. Her eyes widened. You found something, she said. Oh, we found something, all right, said Lila, who was dunking a cookie in her coffee like she was watching a soap opera. I told Denise what Lila had told me, about the letter, about Harper, about the file, about Mama's note. I watched my daughter's face shift through a whole spectrum: curiosity, shock, anger, tenderness, sadness, like somebody was turning a kaleidoscope. So she did hear from her, Denise said when I finished. Grandma did hear from her first baby, from Harper. Yes, I said. And she didn't tell us, Denise added. No, I said. She blew out a breath through her nose. That tracks, she said. Sorry, I know we're not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but that tracks. Grandma wasn't big on share, until when it came to things that made her look human. Lila winced. She was from a generation that thought suffering was something you did behind a closed door with a good lipstick on, she said. Didn't matter if it killed you. And here I've been, I said softly, trying so hard not to do that to y'all that I might have swung too far the other way. Telling you more than you wanted to know sometimes. Denise reached over and squeezed my hand. I'd rather have too much truth than not enough, she said, even when it hurts. Mia peeped in from the living room. Can I have a snack? She asked. In a minute, baby, Denise said. We're talking about adult stuff. Is it boring? Mia asked. Yes, all three of us said in unison. She shrugged and went back to her show. Denise turned back to me. You want to find her, she said. It wasn't a question. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me does. Part of me is terrified. Part of me wants to make biscuits and pretend this is a story from someone else's town. What does the biggest part of you want? She asked. It was a good question. One therapists get paid good money to ask. The biggest part of me, I said slowly, thinks about a woman who wrote that letter 30 years ago, who might have been waiting at a mailbox for an answer that never came, who might have gone on to build a life with that hole still in it. Biggest part of me doesn't like the idea of her going into old age never knowing that at least her letter was seen, that she was seen. Denise's eyes filled. You're not responsible for Grandma's choices, she said. I know, I said, but I am responsible for mine. Harper might not want to be found, Leela said quietly. She might have made peace with the not knowing, or she might be mad. She has a right to both, I said, but she also has a right to the option. Denise straightened her shoulders. Give me the address, she said, and anything else you got. I'll see what I can dig up online. If she's out there and wants to be found, chances are she left more breadcrumbs than one envelope 30 years ago. My heart swelled with pride and fear. You sure? I asked. She nodded. I've spent the last 10 years trying to understand why I'm so anxious all the time, she said, a little laugh in her voice. Turns out, it might have something to do with growing up in a family where the ground was shifting, and nobody told me why. If I can help my kids grow up with a little less mystery about where they come from, I'm gonna try. Leela sniffled. Look at us, she said, trying to be healthier than the women who raised us. They'd be proud and annoyed. That's our birthright, I said, proud and annoyed. We laughed, but there was a tremor in it. Denise took pictures of the envelope, the card, the note. She tucked the biscuit card into her purse gently, like it might break. I'll let you know what I find, she said, standing up. You call me before you call anybody else, I said firmly. If you find something, we think before we knock. Yes, ma'am, she said. She kissed my cheek, kissed Leela's, grabbed Mia, and left. The house felt too quiet again. Leela sighed. I should go too, she said. I gotta go pretend I like my coworkers. She hugged me long. We're gonna be okay, she whispered. Whatever this is, we're gonna be okay. I nodded against her shoulder. I know, I said. I just don't know what okay looks like yet. That's half the fun, she said. Your definition of fun is suspect, I replied. She laughed, grabbed her purse, and went, leaving me alone with the tin, the file, and about 50 years worth of unfinished conversations. 3 days went by. 3 days of me pretended to care about laundry and the mail and the weather while my phone sat on the table like a little bomb. On the 4th afternoon, while I was replacing the liner in my bathroom trash can, it buzzed. I dried my hands on my pants and picked it up. Denise. My stomach flipped. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. I found her, she said. My knees went out. I sat down on the edge of the tub before I could fall. How? I asked, once I could breathe. Couple of things, she said, her voice somewhere between excited and careful. The address on the envelope. The building's still there. It's apartments still, only now they call them lofts and charge twice as much. Management office said no one named Harper lives there now, but there used to be a Harper L in 3B in the 90s. She read the last name. It wasn't one I recognized. She moved out around 1998, Denise continued. From there, I got lost for a minute. But she had a LinkedIn profile. I choked a little. She what? I asked. Mama, it's 2026, she said. We all got digital footprints whether we want them or not. She's in her late 60s now, lives in Savannah, works well, worked at a community college as a culinary instructor, retired last year. Culinary, I repeated. Yeah, Denise said. It gets better. She's been on a couple of podcasts. Podcasts, I said faintly. About food as memory, she said. About recipes as history. I listened to one. She talks about growing up without knowing whose chin she had and building a kitchen big enough to hold all the ghosts. Something in my chest cracked. She talk about us, I asked. Not by name, Denise said, but she says she wrote a letter once to the woman whose name was on her surrender papers. Said she never heard back. Said she baked anyway. Said she wrote down every recipe from every woman who ever fed her like she was talking attendance. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Did you reach out? I asked. No, she said quickly. I wanted to, God, I wanted to, but I remembered what you said, that we think before we knock. So I found an email on her cooking blog, and I wrote a draft 3 times and deleted it 3 times, and now I have it saved, and I'm not sending anything until you say yes or no. You wrote what? I asked. I wrote that I think I might be the daughter of the woman she wrote to, Denise said. I wrote that my grandmother's name was June Carter, that she lived in Macon, that we found a recipe card with Harper's initial on it. I wrote that we don't want to barge into her life uninvited, but we also don't want to keep a door closed that she maybe still wants open. Tears slid down my cheeks. And I wrote, Denise added softly, that my mama makes the best biscuits you'll ever taste, and that she'd be willing to share. I laughed and sobbed at the same time. You didn't, I said. I did, she said. I figured if anything's gonna build a bridge in this family, it's carbs. We sat there on the phone, breathin'. You want to send it? She asked quietly. Or do you want me to delete it, and we go back to not knowing? I'll do whichever one you can live with. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I saw my mama in the shape of my jaw. I saw my grandma in the slope of my nose. I saw lines at the corners of my eyes carved by laughter and crying, both. I thought about Harper, about the woman in Savannah who'd learned to turn her own questions into recipes. I can't live with putting this back in the box, I said. Not now. Not when the door's right there. So send, Denise asked. Send, I said. Okay, she said. I'll hit it now. And then we wait, I swallowed. How long you think we'll have to wait? I asked. She laughed a little shaky. Well, she's Southern, she said, so she might answer before dinner. Or she might think about it until Christmas. We'll see. We hung up, leaned my head against the cool tile, and whispered, All right, Lord. If this is going to blow up my life, at least let it do it in a way we can clean up. Then I went to the kitchen and started a batch of biscuit dough. If I was going to meet my hidden past, I might as well be needing something I understood. The email came 3 days later. Denise forwarded it to me with no commentary, just the subject line. She wrote back. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before I clicked. It was direct, no fluff. Dear Denise, I have read your message 3 times. I have walked around my kitchen. I have made a pot of tea. I am writing you back with my hands shaking. My name is Harper. I was born July 3, 1958, at the church home for unwed mothers in Macon, Georgia. I have a copy of my records. The woman listed as my mother is named June Carter. I have written that name in the margins of recipes for 30 years. I wrote her a letter in 1994. I told myself that if she did not answer, it meant she could not that she would not. I built a life anyway. If she is your mother, that makes you, I don't know what word to use. Niece, companion in confusion. If she is gone, I am sorry you lost her. If she is alive, I would like to know what she puts in her biscuits. If you are lying, you have a very strange hobby. If you are telling the truth, then I would like to meet you, slowly, with caution, and with food. I live in Savannah. I have a small cooking school. I teach people how to write down the recipes they don't even know they're carrying. If you and your mother would like to come take a class, I will make room. If you do not, I will be okay. I have learned to bake with absence, but I won't pretend I'm not curious. Sincerely, or maybe something more, Harper. My hands shook as much as she said hers had. I read it twice, 3 times. Then I called Denise. She's funny, I said, my voice watery. I like her already. I know, she said. She sounds like you. I felt that right behind my ribs. And she cooks, I said. She teaches, Denise corrected. Mama, she turned her questions into a whole career. That's kind of amazing. We don't know her story yet, I said. There's probably a lot of pain under those jokes. There's a lot of pain under yours, too, she said. Don't sell yourself short. I took a deep breath. She invited us, I said. She did, Denise said, to a class in Savannah. Images flashed in my mind. Spanish moss, old brick streets, my hands on a steering wheel, knuckles tight. You thinkin' what I'm thinkin', she asked. That we need to check the air pressure in my tires, I said. She laughed. That too, she said. But I was thinkin' we should go. You sure? I asked. This isn't a road trip to the outlet mall, baby. This is something else. I know, she said. I'm not going for fun. I'm going because if I don't, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life wondering what's on the other side of this email. What about Mia? I asked. What about your brother, your work? Mia can stay with her daddy for a weekend, she said. Your son can fend for himself. My work will survive one Friday off. This feels more important. I stared at the ceiling. You think your heart can handle it? I asked. You think yours can? She countered. We both knew the answer was, we don't know. Sometimes you have to drive toward the thing that scares you, she said quietly. You taught me that. Remember when you left Daddy? You said staying would be easier in some ways, but I'll die slowly if I do. I closed my eyes. I hate it when my own advice comes back to bite me, I said. She laughed. We can tell her we'll come, she said. We can set a date. If you wake up that morning and your chest hurts with dread, we can postpone. But I think we should try. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Tell her yes, I said. 2 weeks later, I found myself driven east on I-16 with my daughter in the passenger seat, a cooler of snacks in the back, and a knot in my stomach, big enough to knit a sweater. Savannah rose up out of the horizon like something out of a postcard. Live oaks draped in Spanish moss, cobblestone streets that made my old sedan rattle, tourists with cameras, brides talking photos in squares. Denise navigated us to a little brick building on a side street. Sign above the door read, Harper's Heirlooms Cooking and Stories. My mouth went dry. You ready? She asked. No, I said, but I'm here. We walked in together. The room was long and bright. Big wooden work tables, copper pots hanging from a rack, shelves lined with old cookbooks, a chalkboard that said, Today's class, biscuits and belonging. Lord, I muttered. She's not subtle. A woman stood at the far table, back to us, a rang in bowls. She turned when she heard the door, and I saw my own eyes looking back at me. Not exactly. Hers were a little darker, framed by lines that told stories, but the shape was there. The way the lids creased, the way the eyebrows arched. June, she said. My knees wobbled. I grabbed the edge of the nearest table. I'm June, I said. Yes, and this is my daughter, Denise. She wiped her hands on a towel, the same way I've done 1,000 times, and came toward us. Up close, she looked like herself, not some mirror, and with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a braid, strong arms, an apron that had seen its share of spills, a necklace with a tiny whisk on it. She stopped a foot away, like there was an invisible line. Hi, she said. Hi, I said. We stood there, 2 strangers with the same chin, trying to figure out if we were allowed to hug. Denise, bless her, stepped back. I'm gonna go look at those cookbooks, she said. Y'all do whatever feels right. She drifted away, given us space. Harper took a breath. I don't know what to call you, she said. June is fine, I said. Or Mama June, if you feel like Mac and my heart do flip-flops. She smiled, eyes glistening. I've had a lot of mothers, she said softly. Some good, some not so good. Mama is a big word, But I'll steal June. It's been on my paperwork my whole life. I nodded. And you? I asked. Harper, she said. You can call me Harper. Or the one who writes in margins. She glanced at my hands. You look like someone who bakes when she's nervous, she said. I look like someone who eats when she's nervous, I corrected. Back in S, just a side effect. She laughed. It sounded like a sound that had been waiting to come out for a long time. I thought about this a lot, she said. What I'd say if I ever stood this close to you. But all the speeches melted. So, do you want to make biscuits? Relief washed through me like cool water. Yes, I said. I know how to do that. She gestured toward the table. I laid out everything, she said. You can teach me your way. I'll show you mine. Maybe between us, we'll hit something in the middle that feels like us. We moved to the table, standing side by side. Denise watched from the corner, quiet as a church mouse, but I could feel her eyes. Harper poured flour into a bowl. You sift, she asked. Not unless the preacher's common, I said. But you do what you do. She smiled. We worked in silence for a minute, hands moving in a rhythm older than both of us. Butter into flour, fingers pinching, milk poured slow. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Probably, I said. Depends how many tissues you got. She wiped at her eye with her wrist. Did you know about me? She asked. Before the letter, I swallowed. Not until I was 18, I said. Mama told me she'd had a baby before me. Gave her up at that home. Said she never saw her. Said she thought about her every day. But she didn't tell me until my own life exploded. And she saw me crying in the bathroom and decided secrets hadn't helped her much. She never told me your name, just that you existed somewhere. A question mark. She nodded slowly. I didn't know her name, she said. Not until I was in my 30s. My adoptive mother gave me the papers she'd hidden. I saw June Carter and Macon, and I thought, that sounds like a country song. I wrote the letter. I baked a cake. I waited. I'm sorry she didn't write back, I said, voice thick. She shook her head. Part of me figured she couldn't, she said. Part of me figured she didn't want to. That's the part I fed when I was mad. The other part, the softer part, told me to keep cooking. She wrote a note, I said. She wrote a file. We found it. She wanted to. She just didn't. Harper's jaw clenched. I'm not mad at her anymore, she said, almost convincing herself. I was for a long time. But then I taught girls like her. Scared. Sent away. Told to pray it out of their system. It's something else to see that from this side of the apron. If it helps, I said. She held onto your letter. She kept your envelope. She wrote my biscuit recipe for the day I meet you. She didn't get to that day, but I like to think she's somewhere watching this and fussing about how much butter we're using. She smiled through tears. I like to think that too, she said. Added the dough out on the floured board. 3 pats. No more, no less. She glanced at me. You do that, she said, the 3 pats. You wrote that down, I said, on your card. She always pats the dough 3 times. I did, she said. I saw you do it, once. My hand froze. You saw me, I asked. When? Her cheeks colored. 1994, she said. I came to Macon. Drove past the address from my records 3 times before I could park. Stood across the street from your mama's house. Chickened out. Then your daddy came out to get something from the car, and you walked out behind him with a pan. Your hair up in a bandana, flour on your shirt. You laughed at something he said. My breath caught. You were there, I whispered. In my yard, across the street, she said. I was chicken, but not that chicken. I watched you knock the dough into the pan and thought, well, if that's not my people, at least I'll steal her biscuit trick. I went back to my motel and wrote the recipe down from memory, with notes, for the day I worked up the nerve to walk across. I stared at her. I wish you had, I said. Lord, I wish you had. She shrugged, tears spilling now. I wasn't ready, she said, and maybe you weren't either. Maybe if I'd walked over, your mama would have slammed the door. Maybe she would have grabbed me and never let go. I'll never know. We cut circles out of the dough. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we know a little more, I said. We know you got my pat. I know you got my eyes. We know Mama tried in her way. We know we're standing in the same kitchen now, even if it's 30 years late. She laid the biscuits on a tray. You think it's too late? She asked. For what? I said. For whatever this is, she said, gesturing between us. Connection, knowledge, belonging, a place at each other's tables. I thought about my mama, about how she'd taken her secrets to the grave like treasure, about how that had shaped me, about how I tried to do different with my own kids, and how I'd still messed up in my own ways. It's too late for some things, I said honestly. It's too late for you to sit in her lap and let her braid your hair. It's too late for your baby pictures to be on my fridge. It's too late for us to share a room and fight over the good pillow. She laughed through her tears. But it's not too late for all of it, I continued. It ain't too late for stories. It ain't too late for holidays if we want 'em. It ain't too late for you to teach my granddaughter how to write in the margins of recipes so she doesn't forget whose shoulders she's stirring on. She blinked. You'd want that? She asked. To let her in, she finished, not saying the word but saying it. Denise and I talked, I said. We're not gonna pretend you Bane here doesn't stir things up. Your existence doesn't erase my place as Mama. It doesn't erase her place as my oldest, but it does stretch our table. And we got room. We can borrow chairs. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. You're very metaphorical, she said, laughing a little. So I've been told, I said. We put the biscuits in the oven. Denise drifted back over, eyes shiny. How y'all holding up? She asked. I haven't burst into flames yet, Harper said. That feels like a win. You did good, Denise said, both of you. Do you mind if I hug you? She aimed the question at Harper. Harper hesitated, then nodded. Yes, she said, please. Denise wrapped her arms around a woman she'd technically been related to her whole life and only just met. I watched them, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. Jealousy pricked, but it was small. Pride was bigger, relief bigger still. When they broke apart, Harper looked at me. Can I? She began, then stopped. You can, I said. She opened her arms. I stepped into them. It was awkward. We bumped noses. Our aprons got tangled. We both laughed and sobbed at once. She smelled like flour and citrus soap. You're shorter than I pictured, she said into my shoulder. You're louder, I said into hers. We pulled back, both whipping at our eyes. I don't know what to call you either, I admitted. Daughter feels too big. Stranger feels wrong. Maybe we start with Harper and June and see what grows. She nodded. I'm okay with seeds, she said. I know how to coax things out of the ground. The timer dinged. We turned to the oven. Moment of truth, she said. We pulled the biscuits out. They were perfect. Golden tops, soft insides, layers you could peel apart. That's genetics for you, Denise said, voice wobbly. We sat at the table and split one 3 ways. Butter melted across the crumb. Honey dripped. The first bite tasted like Sunday mornings, like apology, like possibility. This is what you wrote for the day I meet you, I said, holding up the biscuit. She smiled. I like to think I was written forward, she said. For a day I didn't know would come, but I fed anyway. We ate in silence for a minute. Then the story started. Harper told us about her childhood, her adoptive mother who meant well but didn't always hit the mark, her adoptive father who left when she was 10, the first time she burned biscuits, and the kitchen filled with smoke and shame, the way she'd found comfort in cookbooks, in following instructions that stayed put when people didn't. I told her about Mama, about her laugh, about her temper, about how she'd hum hymns while she cooked and cuss under her breath when she dropped things, about the day she finally told me she had a baby before me, and how both of us had cried until the gravy congealed. Denise told us about growing up with a mama who sometimes seemed sadder than the things she admitted, about feeling like there was a blank page in our family photo album nobody wanted to talk about. We didn't fix it all in that one afternoon. Can't bake 50 years of complicated history in a single batch. But we started mixing. The months that followed weren't simple. How could they be? We had to tell people. My younger daughter, who had always felt a little overshadowed by her big sister, took the news with a mix of fascination and woundedness. "So now I'm the middle child," she'd said, half joking. "Great. That explains a lot. Can I backdate some of my drama?" My son, bless him, texted. "Cool, more ants for my kids." Then sent a gif of people at a long table. Leela had a minor meltdown, then booked a weekend in Savannah with me so she could inspect this woman's chicken and dumplings technique and see if her eyes twitch like ours do when the preacher says something stupid. We had to figure out boundaries, how often to talk, whether to invite Harper for Thanksgiving the first year or wait, how much history to pour out at once without drowning anyone. There were missteps. The first time I introduced Harper to a church friend, my tongue tripped. "This is my," I'd started, then froze. "Friend," Harper had supplied politely. "Family," I'd corrected, heart hammering. "This is my family." The friend's eyebrows had hit her hairline, but she'd hugged Harper anyway. Our town's rumor mill spun for a week. Then it moved on to something else. There were moments of grief, too. Harper saw a photo of my mama holding Denise as a baby and had to excuse herself to the bathroom for a solid 10 minutes. "She looks like me," she'd said when she came back, eyes red. "And she looks like she didn't know where to put her hands." "She didn't," I said, "but she did her best with the hands she had." We had fights about who owed who what, about whether we were trying to make up for Mama's choices or build something new. There were nights I lay in bed and thought, this was a mistake. I poked a sleeping bear. But then there were moments that made it worth the ache. The afternoon Harper stood in my kitchen with Mia, teaching her how to write little notes on recipe cards. "You write the date," she told her, "and where you got it, and who you were standing next to when you figured out the right amount of sugar. So one day, when you pull it out, you remember you weren't alone in that kitchen." Or the day Denise called me laugh crying because she'd been flipping through Harper's old notebook and found a scribbled biscuit recipe titled "June's Biscuits' Probable Ingredients" with a big heart next to it. "She's been written about you for 30 years, Denise said. "Longer than I've been alive." Or the quiet morning I walked into my pantry and saw my mama's green tin sittin' next to a new box Harper had given me for Christmas. Blue with gold trim. Label on it that said, "New recipes, new stories." The old and new side by side. I stood there and cried into the canned tomatoes. Sometimes when I'm teaching Mia how to measure flour without macking a dust storm, she'll ask me questions. "Mama June," she'll say, "how many grandmas do I have?" Well, I'll say, "You got me. Who's Mama June?" "You got Grandma Denise. You had Grandma June, who's in heaven now. And you got Harper, who's kind of like a bonus. A grandma with a twist." She'll nod like that makes perfect sense. Kids adapt faster than we do. Their hearts haven't been told as many times what's allowed. She'll write down Harper's syrup cake on an index card and add in her own messy scrawl, "She let me lick the spoon even when my mama said no." The recipe box fills up, not just with ingredients, with commentary, with context, with our messy, beautiful, tangled, honest family thread. My mama never got to see this. That's a grief I'll carry. She never got to see the woman her first baby became. Never got to see us all sitting around one table, arguing over whether the gravy needs more salt. But sometimes, when the kitchen is full of voices, when the oven's on, and somebody's laughing and somebody's crying, and there's batter on the counter and flour on the floor, I feel her. not as a ghost stand-in in judgment. As a woman who did the best she could with what she'd been told was right. I like to think if she could walk into my house now and see Harper stirring a pot while Denise sets the table and Mia draws hearts on recipe cards, she'd shake her head and say, "Lord have mercy, I was wrong about what was possible." And then she'd ask for a biscuit. Here's what I've learned from all this. Recipes are sneaky. You think you're just written down how long to bake something, but you're also written down who taught you, who stood behind you while you stirred, who you were trying to feed, whose approval you were hopping for, whose absence you were trying to fill. When you pass a recipe down, you're passing down all of that, whether you say it out loud or not. My mama passed me biscuits without telling me about the baby she'd given up. Harper passed herself survival in other women's kitchens before she knew whose flour she was borrowing. Denise passed herself panic attacks and perfectionism because she knew something in our house was cracked, but nobody would show her where. Now, we're trying to pass something different. We're trying to pass biscuits with context, casseroles with clarity, cake with the story baked right in. I made this for you the day you told me you were afraid of turning into me. I made this for you the day you came back after leaving. I made this for myself the day I decided my worth wasn't tied to how clean the kitchen floor is. If you ask me, that's the real secret ingredient, not the pinch of this or splash of that. Honesty. 200, 300 word closure, emotional wrap-up, life lesson, house family metaphor. When I look at my family now, I don't see a tidy little tree with everyone lined up just right. I see a house, not one of those new builds with everything matching, but an old place that's been added onto 3 or 4 times. You can stand in the hallway and see where the original walls were, where somebody knocked out a doorway, where an extra room got tacked on out back when the family got bigger than the blueprint. For a long time, my house pretended it was just the front 4 rooms, the living room with the polite furniture, the kitchen where we only talked about safe things, the bedrooms where we cried quiet, hallway where we walked past doors we didn't open. That first baby mama had, that was like a whole wing built onto the back of the house that we pretended wasn't there. Everybody knew the siding didn't quite line up, but we agreed not to mention it. Then one day, over a biscuit recipe, a little draft came creeping under that hidden door. A scribbled initial, a line on the back of a card. For the day I meet you. We could have stuffed a towel under that crack, painted over it, and moved on. Instead, shaky-handed, heart-pounding, we found the key. We opened that door and found another kitchen back there. Smaller, lonelier, but warm. A woman standing at the stove, stirring something she'd taught herself to make, wondering where her chin came from. We didn't bulldoze the wall between us. We didn't pretend we'd always known she was there. We just widened the doorway, put a table where the light hits right, brought in more chairs. Now, when my grandbaby runs through this house, she doesn't stop at the old border. She flies from room to room, from old stories to new, from grandma used to Harper says, without thinking. Any of it is off limits. That's what I want this house to be. Not perfect, not painless, but honest. A place where the recipes on the counter match the stories in the walls, where no one has to eat in the dark, where if you find a card tucked between the pages with your initial on it, it's an invitation, not a threat, because families don't fall apart from too much truth. They crumble when we pretend we're not hungry. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is pick up the old tin, dust it off, and say, "Show me what we've been savin' for a day that never came." Then you tie on your apron, you turn on the oven, and you make that day today.